When you're halfway through, sometimes you get a really nice idea of adding some detail or element to the project that you didn't plan beforehand. And you feel unsure if you are capable of adding that without breaking the work that you have completed already in the process. I had that, and I made some mistakes. Today I'm gonna show you how I overcame that. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Gerard's Forge, a place where I illuminate the darkest corners of tabletop worlds and sometimes repair the damaged pieces of scenery. This episode is all about the assembly of elements that make these ancient shrine dioramas lanterns glow. I will show you how I have put it all together, how I hid the switches for LEDs and the wires that connect them, and how I tried to make it at least remotely decent in the end. This is the third and concluding episode of Light and Effects series, and if you haven't watched the previous two, this would be a strange place to start. So go check them out, the links should be in the video description below and up there as well. Alright, without further ado, let me tell you about the next step after building and painting the lantern post. The next step would be to find the right spot for the lantern post on the terrain. I gauge the place and bore through the ground with foam using toothpicks. I also marked the spot where the wires for the switch inside the compartment would go. Using the round model file, I widened the hole in the ground and intentionally pierced the base through. Then I did the same on the side where the switch for the LED would later be placed at. I didn't plan for the working light right here initially when I was sketching the project, so I had to make a cut at the bottom of the diorama to create a space for the wires to go from the LED on the post to the switch. I pulled the wires from the post through the hole in the ground and assessed the way it was going to look. It seemed to look pretty nice and felt to be in the right spot. Then I went on to create a second switch out of another T-light. I disassembled the case, breaking the model file in the process, as for some reason this case was much tougher to open up. I cut through the plastic on the side and finally opened it up. I used the same green gardening wires to assemble the switch in the same fashion I did the first one. Imitating the wires of the native LED of T-light, and glued the plastic beads to hold the moving black switch down. Just as before, it was crucial to test the connection to the LED on the post, making sure it is going to work properly. And like for the top part, I carved the crater in the bottom piece to serve as a compartment for the switch. At this moment I realized the thought that was scratching at the back of my mind for a while now. The length of the wires from the lantern post would not be enough to reach the switch on the other end. So I had to attach another set of wires to the switch itself and connect them to the post later on. I needed to secure the lantern post to the ground first. I used the trusty method of attaching the toothpick cut to appropriate size to the ground, and with a drop of PVA on its tip impaled the post right on it. This made sure that the post is held firmly to the ground and also gave it a little bit of sturdiness thanks to the toothpick. I also applied toothpicks inside the cut crater to serve as holding points for the switch. I applied superglue to the toothpicks and a mix of joint compound with PVA on the edges of the cut to hold the switch in place. At the same time, I cut the excess of wires at the bottom and soldered them together, creating a connection from the LED on the lantern post to the battery and the switch. With the help of toothpick, I applied a bit of joint compound and PVA mix to cover any recesses around the switch. I did the same for the wire compartment at the bottom of the diorama, essentially covering most of the edges with it, before putting back the cardboard strip I cut out previously. I wiped away any excess paste on the surface, making sure it stays flat. This was finally the time to attach the original lantern to the roof of the centerpiece building. I simply used PVA glue and put the lantern over the LED hanging from above. To make sure the building stays firm and secure, I used the same toothpick method. Only this time the pillars would be the ones piercing down the ground. I widened the holes a bit more with a round model file and slowly pushed the building down. Until the pillars hit the tiles. I used toothpicks in the crater of the top piece as holding points for the switch as well. They would help to keep it in place. I attached the wires from the LED above to the switch before applying superglue to the toothpicks and joint compound PVA mix to the edges of the compartment. Securing the switch in place, I did a few finishing touches and filled the cracks with the paste, just using my fingers dipped in water, smoothing the surface flat. And then made a final test of how the lantern would be working. I decided to use the simple black acrylic paint to cover the switch case at the bottom piece, unifying it with the rest of the surrounding. During the process of attaching the wires of the bottom piece, I accidentally damaged the tile of the platform in the middle of the staircase, so I had to do something to repair it. I took a small bit of foam and cut it in shape of the hole on the tile, then primed it with a mix of Mod Podge and black paint. Mixing grey and black paints, I created 3 different shades of grey and began applying them to the small rocky piece, starting from the darkest grey. And then, using the dry brush technique, I highlighted the edges of it in 2 steps. With a lighter shade of grey first, followed by the most light grey color. When the paint dried, I also covered the piece with a little bit of black wash to get the shades more defined. This is the base technique for painting any kind of rocks, though it's possible to add more colors for a more interesting and natural look. The only thing left to do was to put some PVA glue inside the hole on the tile, and awkwardly try to get the new rock fit in nice and tight. The result was decent enough to look like cracked stone, though honestly I was still a bit afraid that the viewer would notice the difference. Now, I felt the hidden compartment of the bottom piece, while being nice and smooth, still lacked some final touch. I remembered that I had a scrap of leather among my materials, and I got an idea that I could find a use for it here. After getting the measurements right, I cut the pieces to required size to cover the whole compartment. I applied the quick-drying PVA glue using the brush over the flat surfaces inside and began putting the pieces on the walls, making sure they stay nice and flat. The battery cover would definitely look out of place if left as is, so it received a piece of leather as a cover too. That was just the circle cut from the larger bottom piece, so that would fit just right. In the end, I truly believe this final touch made the thing look a bit more tidy. I also covered the seam left by the white paste at the bottom of the diorama with black paint, essentially completing this part of the project. Alright, that's it for this final episode dedicated to the lighting effects. If you liked how it all turned out and enjoyed the process, let me know in the comment section below. I will truly appreciate it. In the next episode, I will show how I scratch built the blossom tree, the plant life, and some additional elements of the project. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to click subscribe and tell your friends, your family members, your players, even your DM about these episodes and the channel. Perhaps they will serve as a push to find inspiration and creativity, and I will be happy to know if they did. I wish you to enjoy your next tabletop gaming session, your storytelling and your crafting, and I will see you in the next episode.